saying those names. And then again, Dan, our head of DeFi. So let you take it away. Sure.
Right. Can everyone hear me? Okay, awesome. I'm clear. So hi, everyone. Welcome to the DeFi Disruptors panel today. I'm Daniel Un, head of DeFi at the Algorand Foundation. And as Christine has kind of covered, we have 4 esteemed panelists with us today. Just want to cover a little bit about Algorand DeFi. So the last time we met at Decipher, we had 500 million algos in TVL. And slightly over a year later, we are sitting at around 1 billion TVL right now. So the growth is kind of like 2x, and it's really because of the builders that we have right here on the panel itself. Right. I would like to say that if for the keen-eyed kind of like viewer, you will notice that we have the different batch of panelists this time around. So it'll be really interesting to see what they have to say and what they're kind of sharing. So let's start with Zeno actually. So Zeno, as the CEO of A-Cube and the head of economics at Fox Finance, I would like you to share a little bit more around like how you structure tokens and your view of like the crypto economics in the space as far as DeFi is concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. So first of all, pleased to be here. Thank you, Dan, for the invitation. Sorry for my voice. It's a bit low. But yeah, let's start with a brief introduction about myself. So I have a background in mathematics and then moved to business administration and then transitioned from fintech banking in the credit scoring field to DeFi. So I'm serving as co-founder and CEO of A-Cube, which is a strategic and economic consulting company in Web3. And we specialize exactly on building some sustainable economic models in new projects, startups in this field in order to scale DeFi in general and Web3 in general and try to bring it mainstream and achieve mass adoption. So in the last years, I've been working and collaborating with Fox Finance since the launch of the product. I've been leading all the research and mathematical side of the protocol, which means and includes all the research of new features, the economic design, the risk assessment of listing new assets, setting the security parameters, which is kind of a crucial side of this field, no? Because what my point of view is that if we want to try to scale up and literally become mainstream in Web3, what we need to integrate more and where we need to focus more is exactly the sustainable side of this business, right? Because we see that in the traditional finance or in the traditional businesses, it's very focused on long-term sustainable projects, long-term models. So the idea is, and what I've seen was lacking a bit in the last years in DeFi and so on, is exactly the sustainable models behind the features, right? And we see it with several crashes like Luna USD, Iron Finance, Value DeFi, several different lack in the economic side behind projects. So I think the main thing to focus on is not only the tech side, which is crucial, absolutely, but before and in parallel to that side is exactly the mathematical feasibility of protocols, simulating stuff, trying to analyze whatever outcome and output and consequence you might have with such a model, and based on that, try to figure out the best model possible. So at the moment, what's the stage? We are collaborating with several projects on Algorand, trying to onboard. Not only on Algorand, of course, one of our main case studies is Fox Finance, which we have been supporting since the launch. So it's kind of very important for us, and we are quite involved, as you know, Dan, in the Algorand ecosystem, and we really support it and try to push it as high as possible.
And I want to share a little bit, if you guys remember, Fox Finance was doing leverage governance, and that was driving the APYs on algos up, and the highest that I ever seen was like 700% organic demand. So that's actually really because of Zeno and his team, actually. Great work. I would like to move to Anand. So I would like, Anand, can you share a little bit more about what TinyMan has been developing and the frontier that you're pushing in terms of like TinyMan, the DEX, actually?
Sure, thank you. So hello, everyone. I'm Adnan. I've been working in the Algorand ecosystem since the last 2 years. And for over 2 years, I've been working with Pera, and for the last year, I'm also working with Tinyman. I'm the marketing manager of both companies, and now I'm handing over my role at Pera to Joseph Jejela, known as Love Pickle. So congrats to him. And yeah, for Tinyman, I'm excited to share what are our plans ahead and what we are working on lately. So we have been leading the way in decentralized trading on Algorand. And it's since our first day, actually. And now we have bigger plans. And first, let me tell about our new governance platform that we have revealed more about yesterday, and the Tiny token. So this is really a huge step towards decentralization and giving our community more power. So with the governance platform, every token holder will have a direct say in Tinyman's future direction. Also, it's about giving you, our community, the power to shape Tinyman's future. So one exciting part of our governance platform is also the rewards, the liquidity mining rewards. With that governance system, our community, the users, are the ones who will decide on our key decisions. And for example, they will decide on the liquidity pools, which liquidity pools to get more incentives. So this means you can help drive the incentives for the pools that matter most to you. We have also created a system that rewards long-term commitment. By simply locking your Tiny token in our governance vault, you get a Tiny power, which means you are getting more voting power and more governance rewards by locking your tokens. So, and we believe that this will help stabilize Tiny tokens' price by reducing the circulating supply and also giving power to the community again for the key decisions. It's something important. And as well, we recently launched the governance forum. This governance forum is actually the first step of our overall governance model. And in the forum, we expect, or we are seeing our community discussing about ideas, refining their proposals. So this ensures every proposal is reviewed by the community, refined, and shined by the community. And also, it helps our community be more engaged and more inclusive, more involved in our platform. And we are also excited and preparing for the exciting Tiny token launch and the airdrop. So in this airdrop, our main purpose is actually to give the power to the community. So while I can't reveal the details about it yet, I can share that we really worked hard on having a fair distribution for our users and empowering them. And one additional development from our team is the Farming V2. With Farming V2, we are bringing the auto-compounding feature to the Algorand ecosystem. So by combining the high speed, low fees of the Algorand ecosystem, Algorand's technology, we believe that we can compete with the other blockchains. So we are also excited about that feature. And yeah, we are really, really excited about the Tiny token launch, the governance platform, and everything. And yeah, it's great to be here also.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing about what you have in terms of Tinyman near-term, medium-term, and actually long-term. Yeah. I'd like to move to Greg, actually, from Vistage. And Greg has been very pivotal to a lot of us trading on Algorand, actually, from the earlier days of Tiny charts. Now Vistage, where we can see how many people are currently looking at the same chart that we are looking at. Super important. So I would like to ask Greg to share a little bit more about how Vistage kind of like uses data for DeFi and what are your thoughts around how you can actually optimize the utilization of that actually?
Yeah, of course. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. It's great to talk about something I'm very passionate about. I am the founder of Vestige. We've actually started, as you mentioned, as TinyChart when TinyMan first released. We had such a similar name because we never even expected the product to grow so big. But ever since then, we've rebranded to Vestige and then Vestige Labs as we've grown and wanted to build more and more products. So the product that is used the most at the moment is still our analytics and our aggregator. This is all sourced from the same data. We are aggregating everything that's happening on chain and then distributing this to users. It takes a lot of effort in the back to actually take all this raw data, all the transactions and all the application calls and stuff like that, and make it very easy for non-technical people to understand. And that's the biggest thing that people use. We are currently the biggest aggregator on Algorand. We have over 70% of aggregator swaps currently. And but the change from Vestige to Vestige Labs was because we wanted to build even more products. We didn't really want to close ourselves only on DeFi. So we've also been building stuff like ChainUI, stuff like TameQuest, and now we're also going back to DeFi. We're releasing Rug Ninja in around 10 days, which if you're familiar with the Solana ecosystem, this is something very similar to Pump.fun, which we are combining the ease of creating a token with the best analytics we can provide. So we really have that very, very nice niche.
That's great. And I think like in terms of launching kind of like new projects, a lot of people can actually be using that project that you're going to launch really quickly actually. Super useful. And I think what Vestige is building in terms of using data and just displaying it for the DeFi users makes it a lot more kind of like friendly for people to adopt DeFi just in general actually. And of course, last but not least, I would like to ask Andrew in terms of like DeFi innovation. Are there any kind of like new trends that you're looking at? Anything that's kind of like interesting you nowadays?
Yeah. Hopefully you can hear me okay. My name is Andrew. I am CEO of Humble DeFi. We are an exchange on Algorand. It's a really good question, Dan. There's so much going on in the DeFi space. It's kind of hard to pick one. You can look at real world assets. You can look at Forex. You can look at a lot of different things that are going on. I think what I want to really kind of hone in is on Forex itself. It's the largest financial market, and in terms of volume, it does trillions of dollars every single day. So Algorand, of course, we just recently got USDC through Coinbase, which I think is very exciting, giving us more access to stable coins. But from an exchange perspective, it's all about volume. So again, as I mentioned, Forex it does trillions of dollars every single day. And it's really exciting from a revenue standpoint for us and for our liquidity providers. Going beyond just from the exchange perspective, Forex is obviously very important, and I think a good example of where you can see the troubles that currently exist in the market is just from my own experience traveling from the States to Barcelona. So obviously we hold US dollar in the States, and Barcelona is very big on the euro. Getting access to euros, while it's not extremely difficult, it still takes time. So for myself, I had to call my bank if I wanted any sort of sizable currency to bring over. So we had to set up a date. It took 3 days for them to get the currency in the bank. And then I go there, I spent an hour at the bank going through, doing the exchanges. And then you're paying such a high premium on the swap. So with my bank, I paid around 4%. If you go to like the airports and you see the different exchange rates, sometimes you're paying upwards of 20% just to swap from one currency to another. So having access to these different currencies through DeFi can really bring down the premiums that everyday people pay. And I think that's very important because no one wants to spend 20% to just to have a new currency in a new state that you're traveling to. And yeah.
Awesome. I mean, that's a really important use case actually in terms of Forex, because Algorand's like fast and we have instant finality. It's actually really possible for people to do on the spot payments and conversions actually. I just want to highlight that the Quantos team is also here. They are doing really great work, and if you haven't spoken to them, I think the DeFi devs, you should definitely approach them later. All right, okay, so I just want to move a little bit more to just general discussions, just in general. I think Andrew brought up Forex, which is an amazing use case for the Algorand blockchain. So Algorand has this advantage that we all know, right? If let's say we are comparing multiple chains, we all know that Bitcoin, when you're depositing it on the exchange, takes 1 to 3 confirmations, which is around 10 to 30 minutes. Sometimes it's even 4 hours for whatever reason. And then for Ethereum, you kind of have to wait 64 blocks before it's actually confirmed. And so what Algorand brings to the table is that it's instant finality, finalized in 2.8 seconds, and it could even be lowered in the future, actually. So when we are comparing with a lot of solutions out there, Algorand's one of the best places to actually build large-scale DeFi applications, coming from both regulated standpoints like RWAs and also just retail DeFi for utilization. I would like to ask our panelists here, in terms of like DeFi products, what do you see, other than what Andrew has shared in terms of Forex, what can actually be facilitating more DeFi adoption on Algorand itself?
Yeah, so if I can jump in this one. No, I think like the tech infrastructure, what it enables on Algorand is quite amazing, and compared to what we see around in competitors, that's a really strong base to apply and to leverage in several fields. I think like all of you have seen the advertisement about the payment on Algorand. I think that's one of the coolest use cases in real life that we can imagine now. But on top of that, it's not only on that. The thing is, with instant finality, the point is, with a lot of real use cases in real world, we can't have like waiting time between the action and when it's finalized, And I can see it in literally every sector now, from the payments one to the swaps, exchanging, and so on. But for sure, also in other more traditional fields, I think that's for sure like one of the greatest benefits and strength of the technology on Algorand. That's my point.
Interesting.
If I can add something, I think the biggest advantage that we have is that we can make many small transactions and still not pay a large fee for them. This is extremely important for systems, even if you can imagine something that works like Visa or any other payment processor. You really want to have that transaction finished as soon as possible, and you want to make sure that this transaction was actually done properly. So on other ecosystems, like on Ethereum, it will be very costly. So even the recent partnership of Immerse with MasterCard, from what I've heard, they were very surprised that they can just do settlements instantly instead of having to do them once a day to save on fees, which is really the difference between building something just to pretend you're using the blockchain or actually using the blockchain.
Can you hear me well? Okay. So yeah, I think Algorand's scalability and low fees are real game changers for DeFi protocols. We can see the feasibility of, as you said, the microtransactions or high frequency activities. And, you can't do these kind of things because of the high costs on other blockchains. And that's really important because it's been more than 2 years since the crypto market is founded, and we need some real-world applications, real-world usage of this technology. So, yeah, that's my answer. Yeah.
I don't know if you can still hear me. There we go. Just to kind of add a little bit onto what the other panelists have talked about, but Algorand's low fees I think is very important. So, sometimes people forget that wages across the world vary greatly. And having to go and spend, sometimes hundreds of dollars, which I've spent on Ethereum, it's not possible for me, and it's not possible for billions of people around the world. So I think one of the terms that Algorand used to use a lot, and they probably still do, is banking the unbanked. So giving access to financial markets to people who are underprivileged or don't have access or easy access to these markets is very important, and to do it at a low cost is the only way that we're going to see real adoption throughout all of the world.
I think it's interesting that you guys mentioned this. Like, I just want to share a little bit about the slant that Algorand DeFi is kind of like approaching also. Some of you guys might have seen my tweets around TPS, right? So recently, kind of like C3 was doing cross-chain order book dexes settling on Algorand. And in one of the biggest days that they were doing when there was a lot of volatility within the crypto markets, C3 printed 23 million transactions just in one day. But the one thing that a lot of people do not know is that C3 actually charges a minimums for their trades actually. So it's not like you could just show up and if you have 90 cents, you can make a trade. It's not that. You have to at least spend $5 on C3 on any good day. And when they lowered that minimum to a buck, right, to make it easier for people to trade on C3, it's still $1 that you have to make a trade on. We printed 23 million transactions on that day alone, which is approximately around 200 TPS, and the chain worked completely fine. And another thing that I just want to share is that on the following day, they kind of increased their fees to 20 USD in terms of like the minimums, and the traders were still trading. Like there's kind of like a habitual forming there, and I think that's where TPS kind of like jumps into the picture for DeFi, when Tinyman's building auto compounders, also have Comex, Fox Finance doing a lot more things on the chain that's like really high value, and that's where we can kind of like push the frontier into using more block space itself as DeFi, and that's kind of like the Algorand advantage if you were to think about it. I think there's a lot of breadth to it, and we will be kind of like be building a lot more on it in Q3 and Q4. That's a frontier we should definitely explore. Yeah. All right. Okay. So.
And I just one thing to throw out there too as well. You mentioned the TPS on the chain. I think it's just one thing to note too, to see the growth that we've had over the last few years, going from what I think John joked about it yesterday. People like to call us a ghost chain, but if you actually look at the transactions that are being processed on Algorand, they are they're growing, which is great to see. And looking across the whole crypto space, we're actually very competitive in terms of the transactions that we're pushing.
That's right. And one thing that I want to kind of share, right, is that in the traditional system, you have like a lot of banks that's paying APRs, so that instantaneous interest rates on your savings, etc. So if they were trying to find a place where they could auto-compound their positions, right, with a high level of security, they wouldn't be able to do it on other chains like cheaply. Whereas on Algorand, that's possible. You could choose your compound rate to be even as low as once every 30 seconds, and that would increase your users' APY to a slightly higher amount, marginally, or even way more, actually. And I think that's really interesting. Only doable on Algorand, to be very frank. Yeah. So the next question that I kind of have is, I want to shift gears a little bit. So we have seen a lot of growth in the cross-chain interoperability space, and that's really interesting, right? Because we are seeing a lot of new chains launch, and they're doing a lot of things on different types of chains. Users are getting a little bit confused, actually. And one point that I want to bring up to our panelists to discuss is that since Algorand's technology is kind of superior, and if we have a level playing field to fight with other chains, right, we can actually outperform them. Do you see any kind of like interoperable applications that would kind of like be pushed into the frontier over the next 6 months or 1 year, or any kind of technology or frontier you're kind of like looking at?
I can jump in, please. Maybe, yeah. So, yeah, the market is really big. There are tens of thousands of projects in this market. So, and obviously, people are already got used to some blockchain protocols like Ethereum, Bitcoin, or everything. So, I think we need, I think the cross-chain part is important because of these facts. People just want to bridge their assets from the blockchains to blockchains because there are many different choices. So it's really crucial. And from my point of view, I think this is one of the most important aspects of our blockchain right now, the current crypto trend right now. And as Tinyman, at first, let's say, to extend our ecosystems investing options, let's say, we are bridging assets from other blockchains. And yeah, we are thinking about, discussing about some cross-chain features, but nothing has planned yet. But yeah, we are thinking about it really seriously.
If I can jump in as well. So I think I'll tell you my point of view about all this topic. Not only this topic, it's more in general about the DeFi at the moment. What I feel, what I see is it's kind of split in two main divisions. We see one that is constantly driving innovation, but I see benefits on this side, but at the same time, I see constantly more layers of difficulty, more layers of risks that, in some sense, are quite against the other division, which is more focused on the mainstream goal and trying to simplify as possible the DeFi ecosystem, right? My point is, the main point here is what I think should be the vision is trying to align all the goal and the incentives in one and focus on simplifying as the most possible the space, no? And one thing that I see very crucial cross-chain technology here is exactly in trying to simplify the entry barriers and especially highlighting the liquidity efficiency by trying to unify it and concentrate it among different chains and try to change the focus from completely fragmentating liquidity and user experiences and the different layers, etc., to one unified, easier user experience in general. And I think, you know, in the end, if the goal is to achieve mainstream and billion users, which already is like a crazy goal, because if we think about traditional finance in general, it's not even mainstream traditional finance. Like average people don't manage their assets, not even traditional finance. So we are trying to bring mainstream a niche of a niche, okay? Of course, the approach has to be as simple as possible. And of course, for builders, it's cool to see all these new innovations and adding the layer on top of the layer and so on. But the point is, that's not going to be mainstream. That's not going to attract new users, right? So my point of view, my vision, and I think that should be the vision in general and shared among the builders, is try to simplify as most as possible and try to make it the easiest in terms of accessing this field and also in operating in this field, you know? So as a builder, I see like, okay, I enjoy so much all these new features, super complicated, but of course, the new user is not gonna study all the economic model of a crazy new integration, right? So I think we should align and focus more on attracting new users and trying to make it as simple as possible, still innovating, but innovating in the sense of making features more efficient, making features more similar to what we have in the real world and so on. And that's the secret sauce, I think, to literally go mainstream, right?
That's a great point, actually. Like, I don't know if you guys noticed, but in terms of like the DeFi cohort of applications that we have on Algorand, right? A lot of them put in a lot of rigor into what they're thinking when they're trying to build applications. And this is something that you don't really see on a lot of other chains. Like Zeno's right, in terms of a lot of other chains that are always trying to build like the next level, level 6, level 7, level 8, and then some things could actually crumble when they're trying to build the rest. So the user experience is actually pretty important when you're trying to actually grow this whole scene. Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting.
What I'll tell you more on this, the difficult side is that we have different actors involved now. We have users, we have builders, and we have investors, okay? So it's difficult to align the incentives of all three, right? And that should be that's the ideal image, right? To manage the alignment of incentives of all the actors involved and at the same time scale it up, right? And it's difficult. It's difficult because, of course, all the different actors are focused on their own benefits, right? And try to align those which often are quite controversial or quite against each other in some sense. It's difficult. But yeah, we are here to try to do it now.
Yes, great, please.
I also have a completely different perspective when it comes to cross-chain products. I think that while I understand the need for it, because people, when they have most of their assets on one chain, they might not want to send them through a centralized point. So that's why we need to have bridges. But also think that none of the chains have achieved any sort of mainstream appeal at the moment. So while Bitcoin and Ethereum have achieved some sort of an investment status, in the end there's only gonna be one layer where people will just use it, even maybe without knowing it. And that's exactly why I think it's better to bet on the best technology that you can find, because eventually that's where these solutions will emerge. And it's not going to be, the normal user is never going to know like 5 different bridges. They're never going to have like 10 different wallets. They're going to have an application that they want to use, and it just works for them without knowing all the details behind the scenes.
If I can answer here, like, I understand completely your point. The thing is, we started with one layer, right? What happened next is we started fragmentating users, liquidity, and everything, and now we see hundreds of networks. And the point is, as you said, the final idea is having one winner, and with people using it without even knowing, right? So I think the cross-chain could be a step in between that is trying to take all these networks and try to put them in the back end, in the background, without users having to know on which chain you are, or without having to think about bridging and moving from one to another. Because imagine, if you can deposit on Solana and collateralize on Solana, and then you can borrow on Base, everything on the same platform, without even knowing you are bridging and stuff like that. You know, that's powerful at the moment, because we are trying to merge again all the different fragmentation that we are having that are not efficient. By this, we are trying to go back to efficiency. Of course, ideally, there's one network which is the winner, and that's it. But we are seeing it's not working like that. So the cross-chain, I think, goal is trying to go back to that vision where we are trying to integrate and merge all the different networks in one.
I think we're kind of running short on time, so I would like to kind of like go through each panelist, and I want you to share a little bit more about what you think is like the next biggest trend within just blockchain and crypto itself. Doesn't have to be DeFi, so we can kind of like share with everybody that's watching on the panel actually. So maybe we'll start with Andrew. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, definitely. So I spoke on Forex earlier, but I think, I also mentioned real-world assets. So a shout out to Meld Gold, which is a tokenization platform on Algorand. They tokenize gold, they tokenize silver, they tokenize precious metals. I think that it's one of the things that actually got my dad really interested into crypto. So he's not very familiar with the technology, but he's very familiar with gold. And if you're familiar with that market, it's very difficult to, or not necessarily very difficult, but again, it's just the premiums that you pay to have access. You're holding physical gold, you're paying premiums to get that gold. Real world assets allow you to unlock these things much more cheaply and allow you to use them across the world with, like I said, you can't really bring 10 ounces of gold onto a plane without a lot of alarm bells going off. So just being able to go across borders with these assets, I think, is very important.
Greg, how about you?
In my opinion, I think I'm not sure what the perfect product would be to bring mainstream adoption. I think we're still some way to get there. But I can see what current users want, and they usually like products that just exist purely for fun. They like gaming, they like using DeFi for speculation. They like things that are interesting for primarily that they are interesting first, and they are DeFi and crypto second. So I do think that gaming could have a huge comeback because currently most games were built with blockchain first and game second. And if you build the game first with blockchain second, that's much more powerful.
So maybe a sentence each from the remaining panelists.
Yeah, for me or for Tiny Man, at first, we still really believe in decentralization, and from my point of view, I think there is still a road to go to achieve that part. To simply at least build trust and create a community-empowered economy, let's say. The other thing is, as they mentioned, the GameFi part is really important, and the last is interoperability, or cross-chain things.
To wrap it up, I would say, from my point of view, the thing is, DeFi is at the moment a bubble in parallel to traditional finance or traditional world. The thing is, once we manage to bring some real bridges between the real world, which when Andrew was talking about digital gold and digital silver, that's one of the bridges, right? And then on top of that, if with those assets you can also unlock liquidity and collateralize it, such as on folks, and borrow against those, which is something that in traditional finance it's quite difficult to do, to unlock liquidity with commodities. There you see real use cases, right? And you see the merge between real world and DeFi. Once we will find the perfect match in this sense, that's what I see as the trend.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Jano, for sharing. Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks for attending the DeFi panel. It's awesome to have our panelists here today.